Alright, let's dive into the 2026 fantasy football rankings, but not in the way you're used to. Forget the dry lists and stats-heavy breakdowns. I'm here to give you the why behind these picks and what it means for your draft strategy. Because let's be real, anyone can read off a cheat sheet, but understanding the why? That's where you gain an edge. First up, the quarterbacks. Josh Allen at the top? No surprise there. But what's fascinating is how he's managed to stay in a league of his own despite the rise of guys like Mahomes and Burrow. Personally, I think what sets Allen apart isn't just his arm, it's his legs. His rushing TDs give him a floor that's almost unmatched. But here's the thing, if you're not the one drafting Allen, you're forced to rethink your strategy. And that's where it gets interesting. Lamar Jackson at number 2. Now, this is where opinions start to split. Coming off a down year, some might be hesitant, but I'm buying the bounce-back narrative. Why? Because Jackson thrives when he has something to prove. Plus, with a new offensive coordinator in Declan Doyle, who just worked wonders with Caleb Williams, I'm expecting big things. What many people don't realize is that Jackson's ceiling is still one of the highest in the league, and at his ADP, he's almost a steal. Maye at 3? This is where it gets spicy. Maye's MVP runner-up season was impressive, but it's the upgrades around him that make me pause. A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs? That's a game-changer. But here's my hot take, I'm not convinced he'll live up to the hype. Why? Because expectations are sky-high, and with that comes the risk of overdrafting. If you take a step back and think about it, Maye's success hinges on those new pieces clicking immediately, and that's a big if. Now, let's talk running backs. Bijan Robinson at the top feels almost too obvious, right? But what makes this really interesting is his efficiency jump last year. More scrimmage yards with barely more touches? That's elite. In my opinion, Robinson is the safest pick in the entire draft, but safety comes at a cost. You're paying a premium for him, and that's where the debate starts. Jahmyr Gibbs at 2. This is where I'm most intrigued. With David Montgomery out of the picture, Gibbs finally has the backfield to himself. And his numbers without Montgomery? Insane. But here's the catch, he's being drafted as if he's already proven it. What this really suggests is that there's a lot of pressure on him to deliver. Personally, I think he's worth the risk, but it's not a slam dunk. Jonathan Taylor at 3? This is where experience meets opportunity. Taylor's rushing yards per game are ridiculous, and he's in a contract year. But what many people don't realize is that his success isn't tied to quarterback play. That's huge. If you're looking for a workhorse with a high floor, Taylor's your guy. But here's the deeper question, can he stay healthy for a full season? Wide receivers. Puka Nacua at the top? No arguments here. His consistency last year was unreal, only one game without at least 72 yards or a touchdown. That's elite. But what's really fascinating is his upside. If Stafford stays healthy, Nacua could challenge for the WR1 spot again. In my opinion, he's a no-brainer in the first round. Ja'Marr Chase at 2. This is where it gets tricky. Chase's production is insane, but it's not tied to Burrow's health, which is both a pro and a con. Why? Because while it gives him a higher floor, it also means his ceiling might be capped. Personally, I think he's being drafted a bit too high given the uncertainty in Cincinnati. But hey, that's just me. Jackson Smith-Njigba at 3? This is my sleeper pick. Last year's Offensive Player of the Year has even more chemistry with Sam Darnold now, and Seattle's likely going to pass more. What makes this really interesting is his potential to outproduce his ADP by a mile. If you're looking for a WR with WR1 upside in the second round, he's your guy. Tight ends. Trey McBride at the top? I'm buying it. His numbers with Jacoby Brissett were ridiculous, and if that's the QB he's working with, he's a lock for TE1. But here's the thing, what if Kyler Murray comes back? That's the risk. Personally, I think McBride's talent outweighs the QB question, but it's something to keep an eye on. Brock Bowers at 2. This is where it gets risky. Injuries held him back last year, but his fantasy points per game actually increased. That's impressive. But with no clear WR1 in Las Vegas, he's going to see a ton of attention. What this really suggests is that he's a boom or bust pick. High reward, but also high risk. Colston Loveland at 3? This is my favorite value pick. His playoff performance was a glimpse of what he can do, and if you extrapolate his numbers, he's a top-tier TE. But here's the catch, he's still unproven over a full season. Personally, I think he's worth a gamble, especially at his ADP. So, what's the big takeaway? Fantasy football isn't just about the numbers, it's about the stories behind them. Who's poised for a breakout? Who's being overhyped? And most importantly, who fits your strategy? Because at the end of the day, that's what wins leagues. Now, I want to hear from you, who's your must-draft player for 2026? Let's debate it in the comments.